Okay, there we go. Uh, so today, let me see. We have who's that? Today we're going to have chapter 23 and 24. Do you guys remember the page?
We are already at 24.
No, we're at 23.
I was remembering that it was 24 and we haven't really
Oh yeah, we
read.
have like one yeah. Okay. Does anyone know the page or should we just start again?
I think we just have to start again.
I think we should start again because I forgot the page.
Okay. We have more time though, so it's probably gonna be okay. Where is it again? Okay, so one thing is that it is about 40 pages long. So I'm gonna split it into like 4 pages each person. Is that okay?
The end is that
Yeah, it's that long. So anyways, who wants to read the first part? Wait, let me share first. Can everyone see my screen?
I can see your screen.
Okay. So let me see.
No.
Moon, can you read the first 4 pages? First 10 pages, sorry.
What's gonna take ages?
It's gonna take 4 people.
Yeah, it's gonna take ages. Don't worry. It's gonna take forever.
Okay. Yeah, you start.
My situation was one in which all voluntary thought was swallowed up and lost. I was hurried along by intense anger. Revenge alone provided me with strength and self-control. It shaped my feelings and allowed me to be clever and calm at times when delirium or death would otherwise have been my fate. The first decision I made to leave Geneva forever. My country, which I have loved, had become a hateful place. I gathered up some money along with a few jewels that had belonged to my mother and departed. I have been wandering ever since. I have crossed a vast portion of the earth and have endured many hardships. Now I hardly know. Many times I have stretched my falling arms and legs upon the sandy plain and prayed for death. But revenge had kept me alive. I dare not die and leave my enemy among the living. The night I left Geneva, I passed the cemetery where William, Elizabeth, and my father were buried. I entered and found it silent, except for the leaves of the trees, which were gently stirred by the wind. At first I grieved, but in a short while my grief gave way to to rage. My family members were dead, but their murderer still lived. To destroy him, I felt I must drag out my own very existence. I knelt on the grass and swore an oath by the disgrace earth on which I knew, by the deep and internal grief that I feel, I swear to pursue the demon who has caused this misery until he or I should die in mortal conflict. For this purpose, I will preserve my life to execute this dear revenge. I will not continue to walk the earth with otherwise is of no interest to me. I call on you, spirits of the dead, and on you, wandering minister of revenge, to aid and guide me in my work. Let the cursed and hellish monster feel the misery that now torments me. I had begun speaking solemnly and calmly. However, as I went on, I grew more and more furious until I was almost choking with rage. I was answered through the stillness of the night by a loud and fiendish laugh. It rang in my ears, the mountains re-echoed, and I felt as if all the inhabitants of hell stood around me, mocking, laughing. The laughter died away. Then a well-known and hated voice, apparently close to my ear, addressed me, audible whisper. I am satisfied, miserable wretch. You have decided to live, and I am satisfied. I darted toward the spot from which the sound seemed to come, but the devil escaped my grasp. The broad disk of the moon shone full upon his ghastly and distorted shape as he ran away with more than human speed. I pursued him, and for many months this had been my task. Guided by a sight-like clue, I followed the winding of the road, but in vain. The blue
That's Mediterranean.
Mediterranean appeared, and by a strange chance, I saw the fiend hide himself in a ship bound for the Black Sea. I took passage in the same ship, but he escaped. I know not how. Amidst the wild of Tartary and Russia, although he still invaded me, I have followed in his tracks. Sometimes the peasants, scared by this horrible creature, inform me of his path. Sometimes he himself left some mark to guide me. The snows descended on my head, and I saw his huge footprints on the white plain. You who are just entering into life, you to whom care is new and misery unknown, how can you understand what I've felt and still feel? Cold, want, and fatigue. These were the least of the pains which I was destined to endure. I was cursed by some devil, and I carry about with me my own internal hell. Yet still a spirit of good followed and direct my steps. And when things seem most hopeless, this spirit would find some surprising way to save me. Sometimes when my body, overcome by hunger, sank in exhaustion, a meal was prepared for me in the desert that restored me and lifted my spirit. The meal was a simple one, such as the peasants of the country ate, but I do not doubt that it was set there by spirits that have called on to aid me. Often, when all was dry, I was pictured by.
It's parched, by the way.
First, a slight cloud would darken the sky, shed a few drops to revive me, and then vanish. I followed, but when I could. Then course of the river, but the creatures generally avoid these, as it was there that people chiefly collected. In other places, human beings were seldom seen, and I had to survive on the wild animals that crossed my path. I had money with me and gained the friendship of villagers by giving much of it away. Sometimes I bought food and shared it with those who had provided me with fire and utensils for cooking. This way of living was hateful to me, and it was during sleep alone that I taste joy. Oh, blessed sleep! Often, when the most miserable, I fell asleep and was relieved by happy dreams. The spirits that guard me sent me these dreams so I could retain the strength I needed to fulfill my
Sorry.
purposes. Without these periods of rest, I would have sunk under my hardship. During the day, I was staying inspired by the hope of night. For in my dreams, I saw my friends, my wife, and my beloved country. I saw the kind face of my father, hearing the silver tones of my Elizabeth voice, and saw Henry enjoying health and young. Such moments, revenge died in my heart, and I pursued the demon more as a task given to me by heaven than as the passionate desire of my soul. What his feelings were whom I pursued, I cannot know. Sometimes he left marks and writing on bark of trees that stirred up my anger. My rage is not yet over. He wrote on one tree. Follow me, he wrote on another. I seek everlasting ice of the north, where you will feel the misery of cold and frost. But do not bother me. You will find near this place, if you are not too slow, a dead rabbit. Eat and be refreshed. Come on, my enemy. Someday we will wrestle for our lives. But you must endure many hard and miserable hours before that can happen. Scoffing devil, I will be revenged. Never will I give up my search until you or I die. Then with what joy shall I join my Elizabeth and my departed friend in the life to come. As I made my way north, the snows thickened and the temperature dropped. The peasants were shut up in their hovels, and only a few of the most hardy came out to hunt. The rivers were covered with ice, so no fish could be obtained. Whatever made my life more difficult or painful gave pleasure to my enemy. One message that he left for me read, prepare, your suffering has just only begun. Wrap yourself in furs and gather supplies, for we shall soon begin the journey to a land where your suffering may be great enough to satisfy my hatred. These coughing words only made me more angry and more determined. I swore that I would not fail in purpose and called on heaven to support me. I continued to travel across deserts, lands, and I purchased a sledge and a team of dogs and learned to drive my sledge across the snow at great speed. Eventually, I arrived at a wretched little town on the seashore. I asked if the fan had been there and gained some information. A gigantic monster they said had arrived the night before, armed with a rifle and many pistols. Those who had seen him had run away in fear. He had then carried off their food and placed it in a sledge. The next day, he harnessed his dogs to continue his journey. Passing on to the frozen sea, he was traveling, however, in a direction that led to no land. They were therefore sure that he would speedily be destroyed by the breaking of the ice or frozen by eternal frost. On hearing this, I suffered a brief period of despair. The creature escaped me on land, and I would have to chase him across the frozen ocean. As the native of a sunny climate, I could not hope to survive for many weeks in such a frigid weather. Yet I could not bear to think that my enemy might live and be triumphant. Soon my rage and my desire for revenge returned, and like a mighty tide overwhelmed every other feeling. After a short pause, during which the spirit of the dead seemed to hover around, calling me to pursue my revenge. I prepared for my journey. I exchanged my land sledge for one equipped for traveling on rougher surface of the frozen ocean and purchased supplies. Then I turned my back on land and rolled my sledge out onto the frozen ocean. Since then, I have endured terrible misery, and only my desire for revenge had kept me from giving up. For 3 weeks, I saw nothing but snow and ice. Then one day, I caught sight of a dark speck upon the icy plain, squinted to see what it could. What it could be. I made our sledge, and the misshapen body of my enemy. I heard a wild cry of joy. Warm tears filled my eyes. I hastily wiped away, that they might not block the view I had of the I drove my dogs onward. The creature's sled was still visible in the distance. I began to gain on it little by little. After a few hours of chase, I was less than a mile behind him, and my heart pounded within me. Just then, I seemed to be on the verge of catching up with my enemy. My whole personality guessed it. Unfrozen water rolled and swam beneath the ice with a terrible roar. The sheet of ice on which I was traveling cracked and split. Ribbons of open water appeared, first in front of me, then beside me. In a few minutes, a wild sea was rolling between me and my enemy. I was left drifting on a piece of ice. I was trapped, and I could see that piece of ice which I was floating was being gradually worn away from all sides. Fretted from all sides.
Threatening me with a hideous death here.
Threatening me with a hideous death. In this manner, many dreadful hours passed. Several of my dogs died, and I myself was about to give up all hope when I caught sight of your ship. This gave me hope. I had no idea that ship ever sailed so far north, and I was amazed at the sight. Brought part of my sledge and used the wood to construct oars. I then used the oar to move my ice raft in the direction of your ship.
Okay, so this is the end. Can someone do like the second part? Lily.
I had decided if you were heading south, I would trust myself to the mercy of the seas rather than abandon on purpose. I hoped to persuade you to give him a boat which I could pursue my enemy, but you were headed north, and you took me on board when my energy was exhausted. Had you not done so, I would soon have sunk under my hardship into the death which I still dread, for my task is unfulfilled. Oh, when will the guiding spirit that leads me to the demon allow me to the rest I need, or must I die while he yet lives? If I do die, if I wait, where is it? If I do die, swear to me, Walton, that you will do what you can to see that he does not escape. I will not ask you to chase him and endure the hardships that I have undergone. No, I am not selfish. Yet, when I am dead, if he would appear, the messengers of revenge would bring him to you. Swear that he shall not live. Swear that he shall triumph over my many swords and revive to add the list of his dark crimes. He is eloquent and persuasive, and once his words even had power over my heart. But do not trust him. His soul is as helpless as his form, full of trickery and hatred. Hear him not. Call the names of William, Justin, Henry, Elizabeth, my father, and of the wrenched Victor Frankenstein, and thrust his sword into his heart. Walton, in continuation. August 26, 17. Well, you have read the strange and terrifying story, Margaret, and I do not feel your blood freeze in horror. I was terrified to hear it. Sometimes Sam would sudden agony. Frankenstein would not continue his tale. Sometimes his voice sounded broken, yet it also sounded piercing. His fine and lovely eyes sometimes filled with anger, but at other times they seemed sad and sorrowful. Sometimes he managed to keep control of himself and related the most horrible incidents with a calm, controlled voice. But then, like a volcano bursting forth, his face would suddenly change to expression as a wildest rage as he called down curses on his enemy. His self-enemy to be true when he told it, but I will admit that the letters of feeling and safety which he showed me and the sighting of the and the sighting of the wait among
The sighting of the monster.
the sighting of the monster that man on our ship convinced me of the truth of his story more than his claims alone could have. It seems then That such a monster really exists. I cannot doubt it, yet I am lost in surprise and astonishment. Sometimes I try to get from Frankenstein some details. Some details.
Some details about.
Some details about what the creature looked like and what materials he was made of, but he would never give me any. Are you mad, my friend? He said. Well, where did your senseless curiosity lead you? Would you also create yourself and a world of a terrible enemy? Peace, peace. Learn from my miseries and do not increase your own. Frankenstein discovered that I had made notes concerning his history. He asked to see them, and then corrected and added to them in many places, but mainly in giving life and spirit to the conversations he had with his enemy. Since you had preserved my story, he said, I would look it over. I would not want to leave the world with an incorrect version of events. A week had passed while I listened to Frankenstein's tale, the strangest tale I have ever heard. I was fascinated by Frankenstein himself. I wished to soothe his troubled spirits, but I am not sure it will be possible to do this. Can I comfort a man so miserable and so hopeless? I don't think I can. The only joy that he can achieve now will be when he composes his fettered spirit to ascend to ascend um what next? To ascend dreams present him. He sometimes talks with his friends, and he believes that the spirits with whom he speaks are not merely the creations of his imagination, but real beings who visit him from the regions of some remote world. This faith gives a seriousness to his dreams and makes them almost as interesting to me as truth. Our conversations are not always confined to his own history and misfortunes. We sometimes discuss books and literature. On those subjects he displays remarkable knowledge. His eloquence is forcible and touching, and his stories often leave behind me tears in my eyes. What a glorious creature he must have been earlier in his life, if he is so noble and godlike in word. He seemed to feel his own worth and the greatness of the fall. When I was younger, he told me, I believed myself destined for some great achievement. My
Continue, please.
feelings are deep, but I possess a coolness of judgment that fit me for great achievements. This sense of my own power supported me when others would have been discouraged, for I deemed it criminal to throw away in useless grief talents that it might be useful to my fellow creatures. When I thought about the work I had completed, I could not wind myself with the herd of common slumbers. After all, I had created a scientific and rational animal. But this thought, which supported me in the early life of my career, now serves only to plunge me lower in the dust. My imagination was vivid, and my powers of analysis were considerable. In addition, I was very dedicated to my studies. By the union of these qualities, I not only came up with the idea, but also executed the creation of a living creature. While I was at work on the project, I was inspired by dreams. I delighted in my powers. From my infancy, I was full of high hopes and lofty ambition. But now I have sunk. Oh, my friend, if you had known me as I once was, you would not recognize me in my current condition. In those days, I was almost never discouraged or depressed. A high destiny seemed to drive me on until I fell, never again to rise. But then I lose this admirable being. I have longed for a friend. I have looked for someone who would sympathize with love, with and love me. On the empty seas I have found such a one, but I fear I have gained him, only to know his value and lose him. I have tried to convince him of the value of living, but he does not think I have succeeded. I thank you, Walter, he said on the other day, for your kind intentions towards so miserable a wretch. But then you speak of new ties and fresh affections. Do you think that any can replace those who are gone? Can any man be to me what Henry Clerval was? Can any woman be to me another Elizabeth? The companions of our childhood always possess a certain power over our minds, which hardly any later friend can attain. They know us, they understand us. I have wonderful friends, and they are with me still. Wherever I am, the soothing voice of my Elizabeth and the conservation of Henry Clerval will be ever whispered in my ear. They are dead, and I have only remained the longer living for one reason. I must be pursued and destroy the being whom I give existence, and my purpose will be fulfilled and I might die. My beloved sister, September 2nd, we are in great danger. We don't know whether I will ever see England again. I am surrounded by great mountains of ice, which leaves us no way to escape, and threaten every moment to crush the ship. The brave fellows whom I have persuaded to be my companions look towards me for help, but I have none to give them. There is something terrible about our situation. It is terrible to reflect that the lives of all these men are in danger because of me. If we are lost, my mad sins are the cause. And what, Margaret, will be the state of your mind? If I am lost, you will not hear of my destruction, and you will nervously await my return. Years will pass, and you will experience periods of hopelessness. Oh, my beloved sister, the thought of your suffering in this way is more terrible to me than the possibility of my own death. But you have a husband and lovely children. You may be happy. Heaven bless you and make you so. My unfortunate quest regards me with the tenderest compassion. He tries to fill me with hope and talks as if life were a possession he valued. He reminds me how often the same accident has happened to have explored the sea. And in spite of myself, he fills me with cheerful thoughts. Even sailors feel the power of his words. When he speaks, they no longer despair. He rouses their energies, and while they hear his voice, they believe these vast mountains of ice are molehills which will vanish before the determination of man. But these feelings are short-lived. Each new day fills them with new fears, and I almost dread immunity caused by this misery. September 5th. A sentence has just passed of such unusual interest I cannot keep from recording it here. I will do so even if it is likely that these papers will never reach you. were still surrounded by mountain ice and still in danger of being crushed by them. The cold is excessive, and many of my unfortunate acquaintances had already died. Frankenstein had daily declined in health. A fewer fire still glimmers in his eyes, but he is exhausted. We are able to wake him up, but he speedily sinks back into apartment's lifelessness. I mentioned in my last letter that the fears of internet of the mutiny. This morning, as I sat watching the pale face of my friend, his eyes half closed and his limbs hanging listlessly, I was visited by half a dozen of the sailors who demanded I let them into the cabin. They entered and their leader addressed me. He told me that he and the men with him had been chosen by the other sailors to make a request, which, in justice, I would not refuse. We were surrounded by ice and would probably never escape, but the men were worried about what might happen if the ice broke up and released the ship. They feared that if this occurred, I would be reckless enough to continue my voyage and let them into fresh dangers. They insisted, therefore, that I promised them that if the ship would be freed, I would turn it around and sail south. This speech troubled me. I had not given up, nor had I yet considered the possibility of returning if I set free. Yet could I, entrusted, refuse this command? I hesitated before I answered, and Frankenstein surprised me by speaking up. He had been silent and indeed appeared hardly to have the energy to pay attention. But now he stirred himself. His eyes sparkled and his cheeks flushed with temporary energy. Turning towards the men, he said, "What do you mean? What do you demand of your captain? Are you, then, so easily turned from your design? Do you not all call this a glorious voyage? And why was it glorious? Because it was full of dangers and terror. It was a glorious courage voyage because with each new incident, your strength
Roll
forth and your courage exhibited. It was glorious because danger and death surrounded it, and these you were to brave and overcome. These are the reasons why it was accomplished, flawless and deciding. If successful, you would be praised as brave men who risked death for honor and for the benefit of mankind. And now, at the first hint of danger, in the first trial of your courage, you shrink away. Now you
Sorry, I may have to interrupt you, but this is the end of your part. It's already 10 pages. Does anyone want to continue with, okay, Han? Continue to hear
And
this
now,
line.
at the first hint of danger, in the first trial of your courage, you shrink away. Now you are content to be remembered as men who had not strength enough to endure cold and danger, and so poor souls they were truly, and returned to the warm firesides. You need to have come this far and dragged your captain to the shame of a defeat merely to prove yourselves cowards. Oh, be men, or be more than men. Be steady to your purposes. Be firm as a rock. This art is changeable and cannot withstand you if you say that it shall not. Do not return to your families with the sign of disgrace marked on their brows. Return as heroes who have fought and won, and who know not what it is to turn their backs on the enemy. They looked, and he spoke to so powerfully that the men were moved. They looked at one another and were unable to reply. At last I spoke. I told them to retire and think about what had been said. I told them that I would not lead them further north if they were strongly opposed, but I hoped that they would once again show the bravery for which I had chosen them. They retired and I returned towards my friend, but he seemed exhausted. Can you go down, please?
Yeah.
How long this will end, I know not. For myself, however, I'd rather die than return shamefully with my purpose unfulfilled. Yet I fear such will be my fate, the man unsupported by studies of glory and honor are unlikely to continue. September 7th, the die is cast. I have agreed to return if we are not destroyed by the ice. Thus are my hopes blasted by fear and indecision. I will return ignorant and disappointed. It requires more philosophy than opposes to bear this injustice with patience. It is fast. I'm returning to England. I have lost my hopes of reaching the pole, and I have also lost my friend. But I will explain all of this to you, my dear sister. And while I'm blown towards England and towards you, I will not despair. On September 9th, the ice began to move, and roarings like thunders were heard at a distance as the ice split and cracked in every direction. We were in great danger, but as we could only wait and see what happened, my attention was. Can you go down, please? Occupied by my unfortunate guest. His illness had worsened to such a degree that he was entirely and confirmed into his bed. The ice cracked around us and has driven towards the north. A breeze sprang from the west, and on the 11th, the passage towards the south opened up. When the sailors saw this, they felt that their return to their native country was certain. A shout of joy broke from them. Frankenstein, who was dozing, awoke and asked what had caused the uproar. The shout, I said, because they will soon return to England. Do you, then, really return? Alas, yes. I cannot refuse their demands, cannot lead them into danger if they are not willing, so I must return. Do so, if you will, he replied, but I will not. You may give up your purpose, but mine is assigned to me by heaven, and I dare not. I'm weak, but surely the Spirit who assists my revenge will give me the strength I need. Fainted, he tried to get up from his bed, but the effort was too much for him. He fell back and fainted. It was long before he recovered, and I briefly thought that he had died. At length he opened his. Can you go down, please? Eyes. He breathed with difficulty and was unable to speak. The surgeon gave him some medicine and ordered me to leave him undisturbed. But in the meantime, he told me that my friend had certainly not many hours to live. I could only grieve and be patient. I sat by his bed watching him. His eyes were closed, and I thought he slept. But recently he called to me, my wake was and asked me to come here. I did so, and he said, Alas, the strength I relied on is gone. I fear that I shall soon die, and he, my enemy, will still be alive. Take not Gordon in the last moments of my existence. I feel that burning hatred and strong desire of revenge I once expressed. I do not, but I do feel that I'm justified in desiring the death of my enemy. During these last days, I've been occupied in examining my past behavior. I do not find it blamable. In a fit of madness, I created a creature capable of thinking. I had a duty to promote his happiness and well-being, but there was another duty even more important than that one. I mean, my duty to be beings of my own species, urged by the spirit. I refused to create a companion for the first creature, and I feel I was right to refuse. He was cruel and selfish. He destroyed my friends, nor do I know when his thirst for revenge may end. Although he is miserable himself, he ought to die. If he is allowed to live, he may well make others rich. It was my mission to destroy him, but I have failed. When I was inspired by selfish and vicious motives, I asked you to undertake my unfinished work. I renew this request now, when I'm only left on my reason and virtue. Yet I cannot ask you to leave your country and friends to take on this task. And now that you are returning to England, you have little chance of meeting with him. I leave the matter to you. I can no longer rely on my own judgment, as my thoughts are already disturbed by the near approach of death. I dare not ask you to do what I think right, for I may still be misled by my emotions. That he should live on, capable of doing more harm, disturbed me. In other respects, however, this hour, when I live in the expectation of being released, it is a happy one. It is, in fact, the only happy moment I have enjoyed for several years. The forms of the beloved that hover before my eyes, and I hasten to their arms. Farewell, Walton. Seek happiness in peaceful activities and avoid ambition, even if it be only the apparently harmless one of distinguishing yourself in science and discoveries. Yet, what do I say this? I have failed to achieve my hopes. Yet another message. His voice became fainter as he spoke, and at length, exhausted by his efforts, he sank into silence. Before half an hour later, he tried again to speak, but was unable. He pressed my hand quickly, and his eyes closed forever, while a gentle smile passed away from his lips. Margaret, what can I say about the ultimately death of this glorious spirit? What can I say that will enable you to understand the depth of my sorrow? Words cannot make you feel it. My tears flow. My mind is clouded by disappointment, but I journey towards England, and perhaps I may find comfort there. I am interrupted. What are those sounds I hear? It is midnight. The bridge flows fairly, and all is quiet on deck. Again, there's no a sound. It sounds like a human voice, but hoarser. It is coming from the cabin where the remains of Frankenstein still lie. I must go and see what is happening. Good night, my sister. Great God, what a scene has just taken place. I'm yet dizzy with the memory of it. I hardly know whether I shall have the power to describe it. Yet the terror I have recorded would be incomplete without this final and astonishing catastrophe. I entered the cabin where lay the remains of my ill-fated and admirable friend. Over him hung a form which I cannot find words to describe. It was gigantic, besides, yet miserable in its form. As this being hung over the coffin, his face was hidden by long locks of red hair, but one vast head was extended. It looked both in its color and its texture like the head of a mummy. When he heard me approaching, he stopped howling and took a step forward towards the window. Never did, and never did I behold a vision so horrible as his face. It was disgusting. It was hideous. I shut my eyes, but then I called him to stay. He paused, looking at me with wonder. Then he turned again towards the lifeless form of his creature and seemed to forget my presence. He seemed to be in the grip of some uncontrollable emotion. This too is my victim, he exclaimed. In his mirror, my crimes are consummated. Then his voice seemed to change. Oh, Frankenstein, generous and self-devoted being, what good does it do for me to ask for your pardon now? I, who destroyed you but destroying all that you love, alas, he is cold. He cannot answer. His voice seemed choked, and I wasn't sure what to do. Well, my first impulse had been to obey my friend's dying request by destroying his enemy, but I now felt a mixture of curiosity and sympathy. I approached this tremendous being. I dare not again raise my eyes to his face. There was something so frightening and unearthly in his unlikeness. I attempted to speak, but the words died away on my lips. The monster continued to speak to the dead man. At length, I decided I would speak to him. The sorrow you're expressing, I said, is now pointless. If you had listened to the voice of conscience earlier, Frankenstein would still be alive. And do you dream? Said the creature. Just think that I felt no pain and no regret. I assure you I did. A frightful selfishness hurried me on, but my heart was poisoned with sorrow. Do you think that the groans of Henry Clerval were music to my ears? I assure you they were not. My heart was made to feel love and sympathy. It was then twisted by misery to evil and hatred, and the change brought me pain of a sort you cannot even imagine. After the murder of Henry Clerval, I returned to Switzerland with a broken heart. I pitied Frankenstein and I hated myself for what I had done. But that was changed when I discovered that being the author of my existence and of my unspeakable sufferings, dared to hope for happiness. When I discovered that he who forced wretchedness and despair upon me sought his own enjoyment in feelings from which I was forever forbidden, I then invite and bitter indignation filled me with a thirst for revenge. I remembered my threat and resolved to keep my promise. I knew that I would be torturing myself as well as my creature, but I was the slave, not the master, of a desire. It was a desire, but I had it could not disobey. When the woman died, it was different. By that point, I was not miserable. I had cast of all feeling. Evil and force became my good. Urge just for. I had no choice but to adapt to the new conditions. I dedicated myself completely to getting revenge, but now it is ended. Realized my last victim. I was at first hurt by his expression of misery. Then I recalled what Frankenstein had said of his power of persuasion. I cast my eyes of lightly from my friend, and anger was rekindled within me. Wretch, I said, you are mourning over destruction you have caused. You throw a torch into a cluster of buildings, and when they have burned to the ground, you sit among the ruins and cry about the damage. Hypothetical friend, if he whom you mourn still lived, he would be the object of your revenge. But it's not pity that you feel. You are only sad because the victim of your cruelty is now placed beyond your reach.
Okay, wait. It's already 10 pages, so who wants to do the honors? Okay, so who wants to do the honors of the last 10 pages? Anyone else? Come on. Uh,
Um, uh, what
okay,
is that AI reading? No, that it's sent to me. Is it AI companion?
yeah, just ignore that. Okay, Sophia, you can go ahead.
Okay. Oh, you're wrong, replied the being. I am sure that is how it's looked to you, but I am no longer searching for fellow feelings in my missing, nor do I deserve to find any sympathy. There was a time when I sought sympathy, then my whole being overflowed with the love of virtues and with feelings of happiness and affections. But it is different now. Now virtues has become to me a shadow, and happiness and affections how turns into righteous disperse. Why then should I seek sympathy? I am content to suffer alone. When I die, I am content to be remembered with hearts. Once I hope to meet with being who, pardoning my outward forms, would love me for my excellence.
Qualities.
Uh, for my excellent qualities. I was nourished with high thoughts of holiness and devotions. But now crimes has degraded me to conditions beneath and meaningless animals. No goods, no mishes, no mercy can be found compared to mine. When I run over the fearful uh, catalogue of my sins, I cannot believe that I am same creatures who uh through through uh were once filled with visions of the beauty and the mercies of goodness. But it is so that the fallen angel becomes a emergency devil. Yet even the great enemy of God and man had friends of companies. In his shadows I'm alone. You call Frankenstein your friend, and you seem to have some knowledge of my crimes and his misfortunes. But in, in the details he gave you of them, he could not possibly sum up the hours and months of misery I endured. For a while, I destroyed his hope. I did not stifling my own desire. I desired love and fellowships, but I was constantly rejected. Was there no interest in this? Am I to be to be thought the only criminals when all humankind sign against me? Why do you not hate Felix, who drove me from his door? Why do you not curse that man who sought to destroy me after I saved his child from drowning? Nay, these are visuals and chemiculates beings. I, on the other hand, am miserable and evil. I am to be rejected and kicked it and trampled on. Even now, my blood, my blood boils as the recollections of these injustices. But it is true that I am a witch. I have murdered the the lovely and the helpless. I have family the incidents as they slap and kill humans who never injured me or any other living things. I have towards my cre- creatures. I have pushed him and driven him to roots. There he lies, white and cold in death. You hate me, but your heart cannot equal the with which I regard myself. I look on the hands which did these deeds. I th- I think on the imaginations where they were first thought of, and I long for the commons when imaginations will be no more. Fear not that I shall be the instrument instruments of more evil. My work is nearly done, and neither yours nor any other man's death is needed to bring in it to completions. But my own death is required. Uh,
And do not hear.
and do not think that I shall be slow to perform this surface. I shall leave your ships on the ice draft which brought me here, and seek the most northern uh, e- extremity of the globe. There I shall build a further pile and burn this miserable body to ash. Then I shall no longer feel the orders which now consume me. I shall no longer suffer from feelings left unsatisfied. He who called me into being is now dead, and when I shall be no more, the memories of us both will speedily vanish. I shall no longer see the sun or stars, or feel the wind play on my cheeks, lights, feelings, and senses will pass will, will pass away, and in these conditions must I find my happiness. Some years ago, when the image which his this word affords first opened up upon me, I would have wept at the process of death. Now, however, death is my only comfort, polluted by crimes and torn by the brightest regrets. Where can I find rest but in death? Farewell. I leave you, and in you the last human being these eyes will ever see. Farewell, for Frankenstein. You sought my death that I might not cause greater witnesses. Witnesses. Uh, now,
Wretchedness. Isn't that right?
witnesses.
This thing
I
right?
don't.
It's
Witnesses.
wretchedness.
Now I seek that as well. Soon I shall die in what I know I now feel I shall feel no longer. I shall climb my virgin pine trembly and take pleasures in the torturing flames. The light of that blaze and fades away. My ass will be swept into the sea by the wind. My spirits will sleep in peace, or if it continues to think, it will not surely think thus. Farewell. After saying this, he sprang out of the cabin window and onto an ice raft, which lay clo- close to the ships. He was soon carried away by the wave and lost in darkness and distance.
Okay, that's just the end. Thank you for that. Okay, so the last part here, chapter 24 is quite the, I'd say it's like really just like quite chapter. Very dramatic, as you can already see. Wait, one moment, please. Okay, here we go. Okay, so a bit of a summary here. Victor, upon all his close members' death, decides to leave Geneva forever. While visiting the graves of his family, he swears revenge and then hears the monster's laughter and its voice calling Victor a miserable wretch. Victor pursues the monster, Victor pursues the monster, but it escapes into darkness. The monster's revenge is now successful. You can see that Victor suffers alone in isolation, such as it also does that. For months, Victor tracks the monster northward to the frigid Arctic regions, led by clues, taunting notes, and noises that the monster leaves behind. Victor chases the monster onto the frozen ocean with sleds and dogs and comes within a mile of the monster's own sled. But then the ice breaks up beneath Victor's sled. The barren Arctic is a perfect symbol for isolation and the power of nature. A man in this tundra is utterly alone and at the mercy of nature. This is at the point where Walton's ship um, rescued Victor. If you remember, Walton's ship actually starts to appear at the beginning at letters 1 through 4. The narrative turns to the present now. Victor, knowing that he's dying, begs Walton to take vengeance on the monster if he should happen to see it. Here, Victor is finally told his story and secret to a sympathetic audience. But now you can see that there is practically no difference between Victor and the monster, except for appearance. The entire thing, there is a part where it is the Walton in continuation. I was actually unable to find that part for some reasons, but I'll basically try to like summarize it for you guys. So basically, the novel returns the frame of Walton's letter to his sister, Margaret Saville. In a letter on August 26th, Walton says that he believes Victor's story and recalls how Victor describes himself as the victim of lofty ambition, which brought him to despair. Walton says that he did not know when they could have been friends. As Walton writes, he says, I have sought one who would sympathize with and love me. Yet while Victor responded kindly to his offers of friendship, he remained fixated on his only remaining destiny, to destroy the monster. Walton and Victor here are after the same thing: love, acceptance, and glory. And in both cases, their ambition worked against their hope for love and acceptance. Both men end up trapped and isolated, Walton by nature and Victor by the need for vengeance. In a letter on September 2nd, Walton tells Margaret that his ship and crew are in grave danger. The ship is now surrounded entirely by ice. He blames himself for their fate and says they may all die as the result of his mad schemes. He fears a mutiny. Just as Victor lost his innocence and realized the dangers of his ambition, Walton does that too. Walton also fears vengeance from the monster of his crew. In a letter on September 5th, Walton says that his crew have demanded that he turn the ship around and head for home as soon as the ice frees them. Victor speaks up in his defense, telling the rebellious crew that they should be men, for they had set out to be the benefactors of their species. The speech changes the crew's mind, but Walton's fear is that it is only temporary. He'd say he'd rather die than return in shame with his purpose unfulfilled. Walton still maintains the innocent ideal notion that he can enlighten all of humankind by seeing the North Pole. A same mix of both arrogance, benevolence, and just lust for fame fuels both his and Victor's ambition. Victor's speech implies that he has not, in fact, changed much at all. In a letter on September 7th, Walton says that he has agreed to the crew's demand to turn back. He considered what happened an injustice. Like Victor, Walton blames his future not on his ambition or his fallibility, but on others. In his final letter on September 12th, Walton says that he will turn back, his hopes of glory and utility crushed. In addition, Victor had died. Victor had objected to Walton's decision to turn back his ship and said that his own purpose remained firm. Victor then tried to rise and return to the ice, but could not. He affirmed his certainty that he acted well in trying to defend his fellow man against the monster, his creation. He then died quietly, eager to rejoin the relatives he had lost in life. Like Victor, Walton's ambition destroys everything around him until he is left alone. Victor, quick to judge everything but himself, expects Walton to stick to his convictions, but his own conviction is a need for revenge. If he had truly acted in good faith, he would have confronted his prejudice, or failing that, told his secret earlier. Walton interrupts his letter upon hearing a disturbance in the cabin where Victor's body lies. He returns to tell Margaret that he had just seen Monster crying over Victor's corpse. To Walton's shock, the monster said he suffered remorse and pity for Victor all along. Walton calls the monster a wretch. The monster is unsurprised, having been rejected by people from the start. It says that it has abhorred itself even at it was doing evil, and described itself as a fallen angel. Yet it also wonders why only it and not Felix or the man who shot it, or Frankenstein, is considered a criminal. The monster then promised to end its own life, springs from the cabin and back on the ice, and then disappears. The last person the monster encounters before killing itself treats it unfairly with the same prejudice and bitterness the monster has faced throughout its entire life. Its use of religious language to describe its plights again suggests that the connection between Frankenstein and Paradise Lost, between the monster, Adam and Satan, with the final condemnation of the prejudice, the hopeless face, and the weakness of men, the monster reveals its final loss of innocence, its own self-hatred and wish to die. This is one of the most, I would say, one of the darkest parts of Frankenstein, because at the end there is no happiness. Usually when you read fiction stories, it would always be some sort of happy ending. But in this case, as of this story, a story that could neither be called horror nor be called fiction in and of itself, does not have a happy ending, but rather, it has what is an open-ended ending. You could interpret it however you want. We do not know if the monster actually lived or does not. The only thing we know is that Frankenstein has died and there has been no more attempts of the monster, of pursuit for the monster. Okay, so now that being out of the way, for this last, we are going to have a bit of a return, a bit of I'd say like a bit of a it's a assignment idea. So here you can do two things. Number one is you can either write a book report, basically, you could either write an essay, a book report about a character, basically a character analyst.
I hope
Analyst
it's not gonna from
essay.
Frankenstein. Yeah.
So either you analyze the motivations, development, complexity of a major character in Frankenstein, and use textual evidence, which is basically evidence from the book to support what is your claims. Second, you could do what is a second, you could do what is a news or tabloid article, which which is basically Frankenstein in the headlines, to reimagine a major event from Frankenstein if it were to happen today. Like, for example, you could write a news article about
Hey, I need to talk to you something. In the classroom, it's like created writing. So why don't we like write a story or create something? Because it's called create writing.
the class is called language arts, by the way, so that's something else.
Whatever.
Anyways, so creativity is something that you could use to write the essay of the assignment that I've said below, or you could write a news article, sensationalist type, based on an important scene or event in the novel. Like, for example,
Can you write the like what?
please do not. I am briefing what you need to do. Please do not interrupt me, okay? As I was saying before, in the assignments, you could either write character analysis or a news article about something that happened. For example, Justine being executed for William's murder, that type of thing. For example, it could be like, oh, mad scientist creates life from dead flesh, or maybe Victor Frankenstein. What? Like Justine Moritz on trial again for crimes against nature, that kind of thing. Very I want something that has an eye-catching dramatic headline with brief summary of the events and description of it, interviews from characters, whatever you do, that kind of thing.
So I have a question. Can you send the two the two things that we have
Yes, I will send them.
to? So where will we send them? In the Padlet?
Wait, let me check again. Okay, so one thing is that I want you guys to, can you guys just like write it in a Google Docs or Word, in a Google Docs or a Word format? And then I will you guys can send it to me that day after.
So what are we supposed to do?
Okay, I'll send it in the chat and then I'll send it, and then it's going to be in the Padlet as well, but I'd rather you use like a file or something because it's easier
In
to
the
format that way.
book, in the Coot diary, in the
I
Coat
think I
diary.
wanna do it on Padlet.
Like it's going to be the okay, fine. But okay, so what you're going to do is that the homework is going to be in the Zalo group and it's going to be in the Padlet link, and you're going to be doing it in a Word document or like a Google Docs document, that kind of thing.
So
Let's
you
do it how.
appreciate if we do it on Google Doc?
Yeah. Appreciate is not the thing, it's a requirement.
Okay, so where's the Google Doc?
You create it on yourself.
Yeah, google.docs.com.
I'll just make it on
Or
Word.
maybe docs.google.com.
I'll just make it on work. And I'll send.
By the way, these two things you either do this is an either or type of situation, which means you either do this or either do that.
Where's the go?
If you have any questions on the
What do we do now?
Where is the homework?
just wait.
What are we doing
For
now?
what?
Okay,
Wait, for
so
what?
for those who don't have the Padlet link, it's in here. If you don't want to go there, there is the
Journal.
it's just the homework is just in there, but
Can we attach a link? No. Can we attach a file into Padlet? Yeah, I think we can.
yeah, you can do that. Here. And then if you can, then just I want it to be at the top. So I'm requiring you guys to just do it in a Google Docs or like a Word document instead, so that my input will not be like, yeah.
Can I do all two of those assignments?
I mean, if you have time,
I think I do.
then sure, go ahead.
I think it just took me a few minutes or like half an hour or something.
Okay, then sure, that's it. So, does anyone have any questions on the assignment?
or maybe I could just do one, but I can't decide. So
Are we doing in the Padlet or doing in the
We're going to be
Word
doing it on
document?
our own, like just make your own file to do it, and then you can turn it in the class.
Okay.
can I send it in Zalo?
Yeah,
Straight
sure.
to you. Straight to you.
Yeah, sure, of course. Any questions? Does anyone have any like questions regarding um the assignment? If you guys have any problem with completing the assignment, if there is anything that's like hard for you, then you can just DM me in Zello. If no, then you guys can leave. It's already 4:30, so yeah. Goodbye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.